Okay, close your eyes for just a second. Picture this.
Yeah.
You step into somewhere. Well, somewhere the air feels thick, green, damp earth smell. Sunlight cuts through the trees, lighting up these huge stone pyramids, reaching for the sky. There's mist. Maybe you hear howler monkeys way off.
Yeah.
You're there. You've just walked into the world of the Maya civilization.
And astonishing is definitely the right word. I mean, back in their day, the Maya were right up there with any civilization on Earth.
Absolutely.
Their understanding of the cosmos, their writing system, the most complex in the Americas. Really, the art, the architecture, it's just, well, incredible stuff.
Right.
And then there's that lingering mystery, isn't there? How did all that brilliance seem to fade in some places?
Exactly. And that's why we wanted to really get into these sources you sent. It's a great collection, covers their beginnings, their peak, that classic decline period, and how their story actually carries on. So our mission today is basically to comb through all that, pull out the really key bits of knowledge, the insights that help us, really understand who the Maya were.
And what their story means, yeah. We'll sort of follow their journey, those first big cities, how they looked at the stars.
Like the writing.
The writing, the art, what happened with that southern collapse, the rise of the northern cities later on, and crucially, how resilient their culture has proven to be. Still around today.
Okay, so let's start where they did. The sources talk about this amazing shift, going from these small villages to, massive city-states.
Yeah, huge transformations.
Places like Tikal, which apparently grew out of a clay basin, which is wild.
Yeah.
Or Nakbi, El Mirador down in Guatemala, Cominal Jiu up in the highlands.
Right, and think about where they were doing this. Not some easy river valley.
No.
Smack in the middle of the dense Mesoamerican rainforest.
Building huge cities there.
And that environment shaped everything. The sources mention their tools mostly wood initially, and how they mastered working limestone.
They were carving stone pretty early, weren't they? Like 750 BC.
Yeah, around then. And they developed these really distinct building techniques, like the corbel fault. You see it everywhere.
That's the one where the stone step inwards, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a triangle arch.
Exactly. It makes a strong arch shape without needing a central keystone. Really clever.
But there's something else they figured out from their environment that just, it blows my mind a bit.
You mean the rubber?
Yes. The vulcanized rubber. The sources say they found out if you took sticky sap from rubber trees and mixed it with, morning glory juice.
That's it. Morning glory vine juice.
And that combo made this durable, stretchy material.
And it wasn't just messing around. The research indicates they were doing this, thousands of years before Charles Goodyear got the patent in the 1800s.
Thousands. That's incredible.
It really is. Sophisticated material science right there in the jungle. They used it for things like rubber balls for that ritual ball game they played. It just shows their ingenuity, doesn't it? Working with what nature gave them. Adapting. Innovating.
And that same kind of ingenuity, like you said, wasn't just on the ground. It went upwards to the stars.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are clear. They were masters at tracking celestial bodies. The sun, the moon, and especially Venus.
Venus was a big deal for them.
Huge. They saw it as divine, incredibly significant. Their tracking accuracy for these bodies was, staggering.
Better than European calendars of the time.
The material highlights that, yeah. Their calculations based on observation actually surpassed the precision of the Julian calendar, and this wasn't just, knowledge for knowledge's sake.
No, it was practical. Or religious.
Both, really. It was woven into their architecture. Think about Chichen Itza.
The serpent shadow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The temple there, El Castillo. At the equinoxes, the way the sun hits the staircase creates this shadow that looks just like a feathered serpent slithering down.
Amazing.
Or look at Tikal. Plazas, buildings, all aligned to mark solstices, equinoxes, other key celestial moments.
So the priests were the astronomers.
Stargazing was definitely a priestly duty.
Yeah.
Tied directly to religion, to governing. They made these complex celestial maps, some we see in painted stucco murals.
Wow.
Because they believed fundamentally that life on Earth was choreographed by the heavens. The stars weren't just lights. They were a divine schedule influencing crops, war, everything.
And they wrote all this down, this detailed world they observed. The sources keep saying the Maya writing system was the most advanced anywhere in the Americas before Columbus.
It really was. It's logosyllabic. Meaning the glyphs, the symbols, could stand for whole words, that's the logo part, or for phonetic syllables, sounds the syllabic part.
Okay.
They had maybe up to 500 signs they regularly used. That complexity let them record really detailed stuff.
Like what kind of things?
Oh, dynasties, histories of their rulers, descriptions of rituals, accounts of battles, their myths, their gods.
So much history. It's just awful that only 4 of their books survived. Those codices.
It's a terrible loss, yeah. The Spanish destroyed most of them systematically. Just imagine what we don't know because of that.
Heartbreaking.
But what we do have is amazing. Like at Palenque, the Temple of the Inscriptions. The hieroglyphs there tell the whole life story of the ruler Pakal the Great. Birth, reign, death, beliefs.
Gives you a real window.
Definitely. And there's this one small detail in the sources, kind of haunting actually, about the late classic period, say 600 to 900 CE.
When things were maybe starting to get shaky.
Exactly, at their peak, but maybe showing strain. It mentions that sometimes scribes seem to be losing the full, precise meaning of some of the older, more complex glyphs.
Wow, like the knowledge itself was fraying a bit.
Maybe. Or becoming specialized, less widespread. It's a small clue, but suggestive.
It feels significant. Okay, let's turn to their art and architecture then, because it's just as impressive, especially when you think no metal tools for carving, no wheel for moving big stones.
Right. The skill and sophistication are just undeniable. You see it everywhere. Those incredible jade masks from tombs in Palenque. Stunning.
Or the murals at Bonampak, bright colors, showing court life, battles, rituals in detail.
Yeah.
And the scale of the architecture. Tikal's Great Plaza with those temples soaring upwards, or the huge ball court at Copan, lined with those carved stone monuments, the stele.
And the art connected straight back to their beliefs, didn't it?
Absolutely. The carvings, the stucco figures, their representations of their gods, the maize god bringing life, the powerful death god, that feathered serpent deity is everywhere.
Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, depending on the region.
Right, variations of that powerful figure. And architecturally, just the ambition, multi-story palaces, those clever corbel vaults holding up heavy stone roofs.
They literally built their world out of the jungle.
They really did. Try to imagine it back then, probably painted bright colors, bustling with activity. Now seeing those same structures being slowly taken back by the forest, vines crawling over stones, colors faded. It tells another story, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which it kind of brings us to that big mystery, the collapse, the abandonment of those big southern cities around 800 to 950 CE. That's the period, yeah. The late classic into the terminal classic. And the tone definitely shifts in the sources here, from growth and achievement to, well, silence in those heartland areas.
What do the sources suggest happened? Was it one big thing?
That's the key takeaway, no. It wasn't one single smoking gun. It looks like a complex mix of factors hitting at once, a multi-causal situation.
Okay, like what?
Well, warfare seems to have become really intense and chronic. Constant rivalries between the big players like Tikal and Calakmul.
Draining resources, I bet.
Hugely, and shifting alliances too. Cities like Dos Pilas apparently switched sides strategically. It suggests a really unstable political scene.
Okay, so warfare. What else?
Then there's major environmental stress. The research points to significant deforestation. Cutting down trees led to soil erosion.
Right.
And crucially, sediment cores drilled from lakes and seabeds show evidence of severe, prolonged droughts during that period.
Droughts on top of warfare. That's a bad combination.
A terrible combination if you're trying to feed large city populations. Imagine your farmland drying up or washing away while you're also fighting your neighbors.
So war, environment. Did society itself start breaking down?
That seems to be the third piece. The sources talk about kings losing their authority, their legitimacy. Royal dynasties just end. And maybe connect that back to the scribes, possibly losing touch with some glyphs. Perhaps a breakdown in the systems of knowledge and power.
It sounds like the whole system was under pressure from all sides.
Pretty much. It wasn't just one domino falling. It was like the whole structure was weakening simultaneously.
And the result?
We see archaeological evidence of royal courts just being abandoned, sometimes quickly, like in the middle of preparing for a ritual. Monuments were smashed or pulled down, and the great cities, they were left empty, reclaimed by the jungle.
Wow. It sounds so final. But the story doesn't end there, does it?
No, not at all. And this is really important. Even as those southern classic cities were emptying out, new Maya centers were actually rising up in the north. This is the post-classic period, starting around 900 CE.
In the Yucatan Peninsula area.
Exactly. Cities like Chichen Itza, Uxmal, and a bit later Mayapan, they became the new hubs of Maya power and culture.
So Maya civilization didn't collapse entirely, it just shifted, changed form.
Precisely. They carried on many core Maya traditions, the calendar, religious beliefs, aspects of the writing system, although maybe used differently. But they also adapted. There were new influences, especially from the Toltec people from central Mexico, which you see clearly at Chichen Itza.
Different politics, too. Less focus on single, all-powerful kings.
It seems like it in some places. Maybe more council-based rule, different styles in art and architecture reflecting those new influences, but still recognizably Maya at its root. They adapted, they evolved, they continued.
Which makes the next chapter, the Spanish conquest, even more of a tragedy, doesn't it?
Oh, it was undeniably devastating. The intentional destruction of almost all their written knowledge, those codices. It's an incalculable loss.
Imagine.
And forced conversions to Catholicism, the suppression of their religion, the loss of the priests and scribes who held so much traditional knowledge. You could easily look at that era and think, okay, that was the end of the Maya.
But the sources argue strongly against that narrative.
Very strongly. Because the amazing truth is, the Maya didn't vanish. Not even close.
They're still here.
Absolutely. Millions of people today, right now, speak Maya languages across Mexico and Central America.
That's incredible.
And it's not just language. Elements of that ancient heritage are alive. They're woven into everyday life. You see echoes in how some communities practice Catholicism, in traditional harvest festivals, in the motifs used in weaving and art today.
So it's a living culture.
Exactly. A living, breathing heritage that has endured incredible disruption.
What a testament to resilience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive. We've journeyed from the birth of those incredible jungle cities,
Their amazing grasp of astronomy,
their unique writing system, the fantastic art and architecture.
then faced the complexity of that classic southern decline,
Saw the rise of new centers in the north.
and finally recognized the profound endurance of Maya culture right through the conquest and into our time.
Yeah. I think the big picture from all these sources is just how brilliant and complex the Maya were. Their story isn't a simple rise and fall.
And not at all. It's about innovation, adaptation, power, yes, but also facing huge environmental challenges that feel quite relevant today, actually.
Right.
And ultimately, it's about incredible resilience, how culture and identity can persist against unbelievable odds.
And that makes you think, doesn't it? When you consider the pressures the classic Maya faced, war, environmental collapse, political breakdown leading them to abandon those great cities,
Yeah.
yet their culture didn't die. It shifted, it adapted, it survived the Spanish conquest, and it's still vibrant today. What does that resilience, that endurance through massive change tell us now? What can we learn from their story about how human communities, how traditions, how knowledge itself can survive profound disruption? It really makes you pause and consider what actually lasts in the long run.